too. The reason it's important to look at South Asia for me is to compare. Looking at Taiwan on a daily basis and air incursions into its air defense identification zone, economic coercion, diplomatic isolation, you build up a picture of how China behaves towards its nearby smaller countries nearby. And that might be a distortion, it might not be. But for me, there's also the risk that you think that Taiwan is an exception, that it's particularly unique circumstances of a Chinese-speaking population, whatever that means. Democracy on the doorstep of China, tied up with its history of the Qing Empire, American interventionism in the Korean War, and perhaps maybe China's actions towards Taiwan are, as I say, the exception. And once it so-called resolves that issue, that that Beijing's appetite will be satiated. Looking at South Asia, I think not. I think you can see some clear parallels between that region and the maritime Indo-Pacific and the way that China behaves there too. I'll keep my remarks fairly short. I think I'll focus maybe on Bhutan, as it was briefly mentioned towards the end there. You can see, as I say, a very striking parallel between Chinese behaviour on the Bhutan border and its actions in the South China Sea. As probably most of you are aware of Beijing's quite aggressive militarization of islands in the South China Sea, the building and expansion of islands. In Bhutan, there hasn't been much attention on it, but for decades, the authorities, the Chinese authorities in Tibet, were sending over Tibetan nomads on an annual basis during the grazing seasons to claim their historic, as I say, grazing rights. And then that develops into some roads, which develops into villages, which get settled by a couple of hundred people, PRC citizens on Bhutanese territory. And then, as Tibetologists like Robbie Barnett and others have documented, these become security checkpoints, warehouses, and other infrastructure. And it's not just on the northern border, it's also in the east. And more recently, China announced or laid claim to a portion of Bhutanese territory in the west. What is this? This is it's coercive diplomacy. It's like the South China Sea, changing facts on the ground, making possession is 9/10 of the law, as they say, and it's a way to leverage, which it seems they have done with some success, or force Bhutan to negotiate on Beijing's terms. And it's also done this over the head, or attempted to do this over the heads of the Indians, who have real anxiety about developments, not just because of the historic relationship between Bhutan and India, but also because of strategic concerns with the Doklam Plateau in the east, which would potentially allow the PLA with greater ease to cut off India's northeastern territories from the rest of the country in any sort of conflict. And I think this is quite telling, the way that China behaves with India, not just in relation to Bhutan, but more recently Xi Jinping not going to the G20 in India. There might have been other reasons for it, but it was clearly, if not a deliberate snub, very much a snub and seen as that. This sort of high-handedness, I think, does, perhaps unlike the example of the Taiwan Straits, speak more widely about how Beijing sees its role in the region, how it wishes to be seen by others, how it wishes others to interact with it going forward. And I mean, I was talking to somebody over lunch the other day who, I mean, my Mandarin is not bad, but it reminded me that, of course, it is Zhongguo. Middle Kingdom. There is something to that, and that kind of narrative that Xi Jinping has pushed forward has clearly trickled its way down, and is being expressed on the Himalayan border. So no doubt it's a desire for hegemony in Asia, and New Delhi seems to be unwilling to allow that to happen, but which is perhaps why China continues to treat it the way that it does. We talked previously about unresolved border disputes, unresolved issues to do with transboundary water systems, rivers. China has been able to negotiate and sort these problems out with its other neighbours. Why not India? Probably New Delhi won't compromise on certain points. Also, it seems to me that these are convenient pressure points to push on when it wishes to. So that is a sign of Beijing's broader regional ambitions. But I also think right now a sense, possibly a sign of hubris or overconfidence. It's one thing wanting to be the Middle Kingdom and the undisputed hegemon in Asia in 2047, but to throw your weight around like this now seems rather premature, and I think it might tell us something about decision making